This is the second lecture of week 2 for HOS 121, and this lecture will go over some of the broad categories of theories that have emerged from research in human development. In this lecture, I'm just going to briefly outline some of the major categories of human development theories, and we're not going to be studying all of these theories this semester, so I'll highlight those theories that we will examine in depth. First of all, what is a theory? A theory is a set of ideas that are proposed to describe and explain certain phenomena, and what we're looking at in this subject are phenomena related to human development, particularly psychosocial development or social-emotional development. And theories enable us to generate hypotheses that can be studied in research studies, and theories can be supported or rejected or modified depending on evidence that comes from research. Your reading points out the characteristics of a good theory. So first, a theory needs to be internally consistent. So since theories help us to generate hypotheses, a theory can't generate contradictory types of hypotheses, in which case it can't be supported. If it suggests that A happens but A contradicts B, that just doesn't work. So it should be internally consistent. A theory should be falsifiable. So it shouldn't be too vague. That is a problem that some concepts come up with. You have to be able to measure and to generate hypotheses and test hypotheses to support them or not support them. And so it should be something that can be testable and falsifiable. And a theory should be something that over time becomes supported by research. A theory that is useful is one that has an empirical basis to it. So next I'm going to share some major categories of theories, and I'll mention some specific theories that fall within those categories. So in terms of categories of theories around human development, I'll first mention cognitive theories, though these are not theories that we are going to cover in HOS 121. These are a set of theories that look at how the mind works and how humans develop ways of thinking and processing information. So if you took the Psych 101 class last semester, you would have looked at cognitive theories and information processing with Dr. Leonie Miller. Two clients in this area in terms of developing theories are Jean Piaget and Lev Vygotsky, looking at how children develop cognitively. I just want to mention them as important theorists in human development, but we're not going to be going into these theories this semester. If you continue your study in human development and you take child development subjects, for example, in the School of Education, you will learn about the work of Piaget and Vygotsky, as well as other theorists in the area of cognitive development. Another major category of theories are behavioral and social learning theories. In Psych 101, if you took that subject last semester, you would have learned about conditioning and learning in week 7 with Dr. Harry Hill. And this group of theories looks at how human behavior changes through learning and interactions with the environment. So behaviorism emphasizes that human behavior changes in direct response to environmental stimuli. It's very strong on the nurture side of the nature and nurture debate. And John Watson, who's associated with classical conditioning, believed that the way that children turn out as adults is entirely based on their social environments. It doesn't have much to do with nature at all. Watson did the famous experiments with baby Albert and the white rat, if that sounds familiar from last semester. First, the white rat was presented to the baby, and there was no response. It was just neutral. And then the white rat was presented to the baby with a loud noise, which elicited fear, like a startle kind of response. And later, just the white rat was presented, but because of the previous association with the loud noise, the rat evoked a fear response in the baby. So that shows, this connection of how people learn from their environments. And then B.F. Skinner, who's associated with operant conditioning, that's the theory is that a learner's behavior becomes more or less probable based on the consequences it produces. So reinforcement serves to encourage a behavior, while punishment or extinction, which means ignoring a behavior, decreases the likelihood that a behavior will reoccur. So we will certainly come back to this idea of operant conditioning. It influences what we're going to look at related to socialization and operant socialization in week 3. And then Albert Bandura's social learning theory, which is also called social cognitive theory, emphasizes the role of cognitive processing in social experiences for children. And also, he also emphasizes observational learning, how people learn through observing other people who model behaviors. And then children learn to imitate these models. So this involves cognitive learning because because learners must pay attention and remember what they saw and then retrieve that information to guide their own behavior. So someone is modeling a behavior, and then a person, often a child, is observing the model in terms of their behavior and then imitating that behavior. And Bandura conducted the famous Bobo doll experiment, where children watched a film of an adult model attacking an inflatable clown Bobo doll, and then the adult model was praised or was punished or had no consequences. And then next, the children were observed in a playroom with the Bobo doll and with props that the model had used to attack the Bobo doll. And the children who had observed the adult model receiving praise or no consequences were more likely to imitate aggression towards the Bobo doll. So we'll come back to that idea in terms of cognitive processing and observational learning when we look at socialization. Again, we'll look at observational methods of socialization, how children learn through imitating models. And then, as I said, we'll also talk about operant behavior as well. So these ideas will come back when we start talking about socialization in week 3. Another major category of theory in human development is psychoanalytic theory. Psychoanalytic theory emphasizes how people's personalities and behaviors are driven by motives, emotional conflicts of which people are often largely unaware, and also their early experiences and how these shape personality and behavior. Psychoanalytic theory began with the work of Sigmund Freud. He's that guy who talked about the id, the ego, and the superego as aspects of the personality. And Freud still has an influence on human development theory, particularly how he pointed out the importance of early experiences in shaping personality and behavior, though his theory of psychosexual stages of development is really no longer in wide use. There hasn't been a lot of empirical support for that theory. It hasn't proven to be very useful in terms of predicting behaviors and generating hypotheses. But what it did do was influence another theorist, will be a major theorist that we'll look at this semester, Erik Erikson, who's often called a neo-Freudian. And he was influenced by Freud to develop a stage theory, the idea that children and then adults go through sequential stages. And his is called the psychosocial stages of development. His theory suggests that humans go through 8 major psychosocial stages when biological maturation and social demands drive development. And these stages begin in infancy, and they continue throughout the lifespan with stages that go through late adulthood. And we will cover this theory in depth in week 5. And then when we look at different periods of development, we'll look at Erikson's theory that is relevant for that period of development. So this is certainly an idea that we will come back to. Another major category of theories are biological theories. These are theories that look at how biology influences and guides development. So first is maturationism, and I mentioned the idea of maturationism in week 1, out the idea that people go through stages of development and that there are normative milestones in typical development, and that's this idea that people exhibit particular behaviors at particular ages, and that's sort of pre-programmed in terms of their biological heredity. So G. Stanley Hall is mentioned in your readings, and he's credited as the founder of developmental psychology. He wrote about the kinds of typical changes that happen in adolescence and also then in later life and later adulthood. Arne Gessel is another theorist in this area, and his work focused on physical and mental development and the kind of typical milestones that you see in children's growth and development from infancy into adulthood. So maturationism tends to emphasize nature over nurture and looks at biological heredity and how developmental milestones play out. And then another type of theory that has a lot to do with biology is ethology and attachment theory. and attachment theory was really influenced by ethology. So these are about biologically based behaviors that have an evolutionary function that contribute to human survival. So we'll look at etiology and attachment theory in week 4. And ethology, we'll look at the work of Konrad Lorenz. And he looked at animal imprinting, how certain species form a bond with a particular figure during a critical time in early life. And that influenced the development of attachment theory, which is how humans do that too, how they develop a strong tie that binds a person to another, and that is particularly critical in early childhood, that provides children with nurturance and protection, and that therefore serves an evolutionary function. So this category of theory suggests the importance of our biology in terms of human development. Then the last category of theories that I'll mention in this lecture is systems theories. So these are theories with the bioecological model of human development being the most prominent, that look at how individuals develop through their interactions with social environments and their relationships. And like the name of the bioecological model of human development suggests, these theories see nature and nurture as being equally important and basically inseparable. So it looks at how people's biology as well as their social environment interact in terms of forming human development. So we will start looking at the bioecological model of development starting in next week's lectures on social context and socialization. So in conclusion, this lecture was an effort to give some broad overview of the theories, sort of the big picture view, so that you can then see some of how the theories that we're going to look at in this semester sit within some broad categories. So we're going to return to systems theory and look at the bioecological model of human development with Uri Bronfenbrenner. We will come back to Erikson's psychosocial theory, which is one of the psychoanalytical theories, and then we will also come back to Bowlby and Ainsworth's attachment theory, which is a biological theory. And then we will also, when we talk about socialization, we'll draw on some of the behavioral and social learning theories that are that come from that are related to operant conditioning and observational learning.